Zelensky, for the first time since the war, sat in the same room as Russian officials at the UN, and fireworks were, of course, bound to be expected here.
Right, and Russia and Western allies traded accusations over Ukraine at the United Nations Security Council. It was to be Zelensky's first in-person appearance at a UN Security Council meeting on Moscow's invasion, and Russian ambassador objected to him taking the floor before the 15 council members.
Exactly. There was big drama ensuing right there at the UN. Zelensky called on the UN to vote to end Russia's veto power on the Security Council, where Moscow joins only UK, China, France and US in being able to block any resolution.
Генеральній асамблеї ООН треба дати реальну можливість долати вето. Це перший необхідний крок. Якщо війну неможливо зупинити через те, що всі зусилля блокуються вето агресора, чи того, хто потурає агресору, потрібно виносити це питання на розгляд Генеральної асамблеї.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov showed up at the Security Council after Zelensky left. Lavrov scoffed at the idea of ending Russia's veto and described it as a way to check Western powers.
К тому же применение вето – абсолютно легитимный инструмент, предусмотренный в Уставе, с целью не допускать принятия решений, которые были бы чреваты расколом организации.
The top Russian diplomat then turned to the onlooking US Secretary of State, Antony Blinken. Lavrov suggested the United States could give a command for Zelensky to lift the decree against negotiations.
Коллективный Запад во главе с США самочинно присвоил себе ранг вершителя судеб всего человечества и, обуреваемый комплексом исключительности, стал все чаще и шире игнорировать наследие отцов-основателей. Сегодня Запад обращается к уставным нормам и принципам выборочно, от случая к случаю, исключительно сообразно своим корыстным геополитическим потребностям.
In his own remarks, as Lavrov entered the room, Blinken recalled a recent visit to Ukraine where he visited a town where bodies of Ukrainian civilians were stacked among the living in a school basement.
Now, as mentioned earlier, tensions erupted even before Zelensky took the floor. The Russian side questioned the decision by current Security Council President Albania, represented by Prime Minister Edi Rama, to allow the Ukrainian to go first. Russian envoy, repeatedly asking to speak, told Rama that letting Zelensky, a former comedian, appear first risked undermining the authority of the Security Council and turning it into a one-man stand-up show. Edi Rama said, and I quote here, "There is a solution here. You stop the war and President Zelensky will not take the floor."
Слово до того, как выступят члены Совета, многие из которых также представлены на уровне глав государств и правительств. И
there is a solution for this if you agree. You stop the war and President Zelensky will not take the floor.
Now, for more on this, our correspondent Susan Tehrani has also sent us this report on the Western nations' plea to Russia to put an end to the war in Ukraine at the UNSC. Listen in.
During the United Nations Security Council session here in New York, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky presented his 10-point plan to end the war with Russia. He also called for Russia to be stripped of its veto power at the United Nations Security Council. This high-level meeting is part of the United Nations General Assembly, and Zelensky's audience also comprised of leaders and heads of states of many countries who have either decided to be on the fence when it comes to taking sides between Ukraine and Russia, or have even tilted towards Moscow in this confrontation. Meanwhile, Zelensky left the chamber when Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov talked about how the West launched a coup in Ukraine in order to install a pro-Western leader. He also called Ukrainian leaders a puppet of the West. And for Lavrov's part, he was not in the chamber when Volodymyr Zelensky was delivering his address. But this meeting comes at a time when there are questions surrounding the relevancy of the United Nations Security Council. After all, the 5 permanent members who are veto-wielding members as well often don't see eye to eye on even the most basic issues. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.